I don't know how people feel about this, but I find there's something very heartbreaking when you read the statistics on lions, elephants, rhinos, hippos, and other majestic wild animals. If you just read the rate of how much there's less and less and less of them, in the direction it's going, is this also affected by us eating animal products, and how?
Yes, it all comes down to land use again. You know, the more of the earth that we can protect and leave in its native state, or return to as close to its native state as we could return it, then the more room there is for the animals to thrive. And, you know, what is driving biodiversity loss is the loss of forests. So, you know, there's just not enough area for these great, you know, animals that you've mentioned to be protected.
So would we still, if we switch everyone to quinoa, millet, amaranth, buckwheat, teff, chickpeas, lima beans, lentils, vegetables, they still need land, they still need water, did it organically. Is, you know, how much is there, do we have enough land and resources and water to grow enough food to feed the planet, of if we were growing lentils and lima beans and quinoa and chickpeas and
well,
like
of
that?
course we would have more food and more. I mean, ideally, if it's done, you know, optimally, we could grow more food than people could eat, and we would have so much land left over that we could rewild it. So there's enough land on Earth to feed the population of Earth. Now, it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be a bad idea to try to limit our population growth, but we can grow enough food for 8 billion people and have land returned to be rewilded, returned to nature, if we're eating those foods you mentioned, the legumes, instead of eating meat.
So if everyone saw the movie Eating Our Way to Extinction, and at the same time, everyone on the planet ate an organic, whole food, plant-based diet, is it too late anyway with climate change? Is it too late already with water shortages? Or are you saying that we could literally stop the most terrifying problem in its tracks? Or are you saying we should have done it 50 years ago now, which it's just too late anyway?
I vote that it's not too late. Ocean and Gerard?
Everything we do matters, and we can make a massive difference. For some people are already dead, you know, like for them, it's too late. Some ecosystems are gone. Some species are extinct. They're not coming back. You know, there are absolutely costs to the status quo. We are on a collision course with systemic environmental collapse. So there are compounding factors that are shortening our runway of time. Essentially, we've already put enough carbon into the atmosphere that the next 30 years of planetary cooking, like certain systems are already baked in. Glaciers are melting, and some of that's going to continue even if we start drawing down carbon fast. But we can make a massive difference. The difference between, say, more climate chaos and an unlivable future on planet Earth may only be a few degrees, right? Like if your human body gets up to, say, 100 degrees, you have a fever. If you're 105, you feel horrible and you can't even think. If you get 108, you're probably going to be dead. So what is the point at which the level of chaos, because obviously individual humans can live in let's say the temperature outside was 4 degrees hotter, who cares, right? Not a big deal. But ecosystems are finely tuned to their climate. And if you change the climate too fast and too rapidly, the plants die, the animals die, things collapse. So that's the thing that we're up against. And it is serious and it is severe. But I believe that we can make a massive impact, and we can draw down carbon, and we could turn these things around and make a huge difference. And water, absolutely. I mean, my goodness, there's still, most of us in the world still have enough water right now. If we stop, you know, using most of our water for livestock production, we'll free up that water. We won't have to pump it out of the ground, and the aquifers can actually replenish, which is incredibly heartening. ecosystems can be restored, we can actually turn this around. We can have more biodiversity. We can have more land for all of the world's creatures to live in harmony. We can rewild. George Monbiot talks about rewilding as the central pillar of sequestering carbon. And he says that the number one obstacle we face to that is livestock production, because that's where the land's going right now. We've got to rewild. And I believe that we can absolutely make a massive difference and leave our grandkids a world that we're proud to pass on to them. And it starts with the food on our plates.
Well said, Ocean.
So let me, if anyone would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. But let me just re-ask the exact same question. If someone in our audience has influence in the world, if someone's really powerful and rich, and someone could somehow figure out to reach the masses, are you saying that the problem of climate change, water shortages, food shortage, deforestation, desertification, ocean acidification, coral reefs dying, species extinction, all these things, we still have hope and we could make a dramatic, possibly solve if we got every person on the planet to eat an organic, whole food, plant-based diet? Or are you saying it's still just not enough and don't bother? Just what exactly is your thought of how far this would really work, or are we just trying to make ourselves feel good?
I think it's the only hope. I know some people say to me that it's unrealistic to try to create a vegan world, which has become my life's work. And I know the odds against it. But on the other hand, when you see the way we're headed, when you see the reality of global warming, it is the only thing that will work. We have been trying to attack the climate crisis for the last 30 years or so in the same way, by focusing on energy generation. And we're burning more fossil fuels than we were 30 years ago. So at what point do people say, well, that's not working very well? I'm all for a transition to electric vehicles and so forth. I'm all for solar power. But clearly, that's not going to solve the problem. I mean, it's just delusion to think that that's going to solve the problem. Solar panels do not sequester carbon dioxide. So you have to look at both sides of the equation. I sometimes use an analogy to the budget. They try to balance the budget by cutting spending. And if you only try to balance the American budget by cutting spending, you're never going to get a balanced budget. You have to increase revenue at the same time that you cut spending. And the analogy here, the revenue is what we get with carbon sequestration. We're bringing in the carbon dioxide, we're bringing in the carbon, we're bringing in revenue. And unless, if we're only looking at how much we're emitting when we're burning coal, and we're not looking at how much we could possibly sequester if we had healthy oceans, if we had healthy forests, then we're missing half of the equation.
Gerard, do you have any?
Well said, Glenn. If I can add to that, it's such a clear decision in my mind. We devote 37% of the planet, as we've been discussing, to grazing animals. Now that land gives us just 5% of our protein. So are we collectively able to switch off red meat and some dairy and have a habitable planet? Switch off all meat and have a wonderful planet. That's the decision. 5% of our protein for saving the planet. Can we do it? I think we will, because we're slow but not stupid, we humans.
I might add that I think all the fish we eat is something like 3% of our calories. So we're destroying 70% of the earth for 3% of our calories. And by the way, I think the cows are eating more fish than we are. So if you think about, Gerard was talking about the ocean dead zones before. Look at the big picture. We have nitrous oxide generated by nitrogen fertilizer. The nitrogen fertilizer runs off into the ocean, creates dead zones, so that ultimately we won't get enough fish to feed to the cows. I mean, it's insanity.
By the way, what happens to all the manure from all the cows? Is there a good system for that? Where does that all go? And does it affect us?
Well, perhaps I can address that. I've just finished a report on for a piggery that's going to be put up near me. If you look at the biomass on planet Earth, humans now make up more than 30%. Livestock, animals, make up 60%. But the problem is that 60%, they're all young'uns, they're all babies, and they're eating like crazy. We've bred them to grow like crazy. In a feedlot now, the average pig puts on 1.7 kilos per day. They produce 5 times more by body weight. They produce 5 times more effluent than humans do, because they're so hungry all the time to satisfy this growth urge which they're bred for. So 60% of the biomass on planet Earth is animals that we raise, but they're all babies, so they're all screaming out for food, and they produce 5 times more. They consume 5 times more than humans consume. All the human waste is treated, but very, very little of the animal waste is treated. It's pumped into lagoons where you have biological reactors where they, biological breakdown of some of the nasties. But the problem is it's not regulated all that well. And every time there's a flood rain, which happens more often now, all of that nutrient gets washed into and kills ecosystems downstream. And this is why nitrogen pollution is considered the worst environmental pollution on the planet right now.
We have people that passionately dislike the Republicans and people that passionately dislike the Democrats. And there are many people in our audience who eat a whole food plant-based diet, but they despise the Democrats and they believe climate change is fake. And they believe, and there's, the problem is there are some things that corporate America is telling us that a lot of us don't believe. So a lot of people have lumped this in with it. So they don't believe things coming from the food and medical industry. So they've kind of lumped climate change as another thing not to believe that is a Democrat agenda to, what's the reason? A Democratic agenda to get more control. And they're not totally crazy, because there are a lot of things that are being done by different parties to gain more control. And so I understand what everyone's saying, but at the same time, we want to clarify whether climate change is just another scheme by one of the parties to get more control over you, or this one really is real. So when it comes to climate change, what do you want to say to all our audience who doesn't actually believe it's real? They think it's just like I said, a Democratic party thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the Republican Party, to the best of my knowledge, is the only major political party on Earth that doesn't acknowledge that humans are causing climate change.